Well, it's kind of extraordinary. No one really expected this because we thought obviously Parliament's dissolved, the election is kicked off, and we thought there'd be she goes to talk to the Queen, it'd be relatively straightforward. And from nowhere, really, Theresa May has given this speech directly to the camera, as you say, where she channels the spirit of Donald Trump. She invents enemies that don't exist. And she plays to the gallery. She plays to the crowd of people who are suspicious of Brussels, and she wags her finger and she says those faceless Eurocrats are out to get her and by extension all of us. And it's just really surprising. And it seems to me what's striking is this is a woman with 20-point lead in the polls. She's so desperate to win this battle, which is the general election. She seems to be completely heedless of the war, the 2-year, 3-year, 4-year battle in a negotiation with the EU. So she's pitched as this very cold, calculating figure, Theresa May. But what she's actually done here is said, I'm in a general election, I will use whatever is at my disposal, and what is at my disposal is scaremongering and shouting about faceless people in Europe, and she's gone for it. And I don't think any people necessarily expected her to feel she needed to do it.
But if you were the leader of one of the world's biggest economies and a faceless Eurocrat, as you described him, namely the Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, has described you as delusional and on another galaxy, you'd be pretty peeved, wouldn't you?
Well, you would, but I think you'd probably think that you're playing the long game, and perhaps the best thing to do would be to start off on a slightly more dignified footing. This speech today, it didn't come out of nowhere. It's about the election. It's about winning votes. And this, she was not speaking to the faceless Eurocrats, the people in Europe who are, getting in her way. She was speaking to British voters. She's speaking to those 3-4 million people who voted UKIP last election, those votes that she wants to mop up. All of these phrases, they don't want Britain to prosper. It's all this stuff of those, it's all full of the same rhetoric that meant that people voted for Brexit. She knew exactly what she was doing. It's a very short-term calculation, though, considering that she's going to be around for the next 5 years, and this is a long game. Yes. The thing about Theresa May, though, is that she kind of can't bear dissent. She's a kind of, dare I say it, almost dictatorial figure. When she called the election, she said, we need unity in Westminster. There's unity in the country, which there isn't, but we need unity in Westminster. And you don't need unity in Westminster. We're in a democracy. You need to have debate. You need opposition. And it's almost like, there was this little whisper, this little leak from her meeting with Juncker last weekend, and all of a sudden she's come out completely. She seems to be irate about all of this. And the thing is, she hates leaks. She called this election without anybody knowing that it was happening. She likes to control things very tightly. She can't control what's going to happen in these negotiations. There isn't going to be diplomatic confidentiality, and it's made her angry.
And Brexit is a great gift for her, because until actually we get to the end of it, we'll never know what the cost may be. So she's fighting this election deliberately, with Brexit as yet an ephemeral thing that she can choose to define. Let's look at this quote on the front page of the Telegraph. Threats have been against Britain have been issued by European politicians and officials. No, they haven't. All of these acts have been deliberately timed to affect the results of the general election. No, they haven't. And let's just pause again to think, even if that were true, which it obviously isn't, what is the aim here? To affect the result of the general election. So what are they doing? People are gathering together in Brussels to conspire to affect the British general election. In what way? To stop Theresa May winning and put who in power? Jeremy Corbyn, a noted Brexiter of a party that is itself committed to Brexit. Or are these faceless European bureaucrats plotting the rise of Tim Farron to come from nowhere and take 400 seats in the British Parliament? Does that seem even the beginnings of plausible? No, of course it doesn't.
If your mantra, though, of this whole election is strong and stable leadership, and today's newspapers, these are tomorrow's, today's newspapers, the FT saying, you, Britain, will have to suck up a €100 billion bill.
Yes.
The Times, you, Theresa May, will not be able to negotiate with the Chancellors, Presidents and Prime Minister of Europe. You'll have to just speak to Michel Barnier, you poor thing. She looked out of control. There was no strong and stable leadership on the front page.
No, I totally disagree. What she looked then was, if she wanted to paint herself, and this is what she's trying to do anyway with this, is the force against that. Every time someone talks up the gloominess of Brussels, the anger of Brussels, the petulance of Brussels, she seems like a strong figure. And it's look at the newspapers, look at the Mail. There's a great quote by Martin Amis about Margaret Thatcher. He talks about it and the way British men react to Margaret Thatcher. He called it potty training run amok. And this is exactly what we get with Theresa May. What we're seeing here, the Daily Mail, is potty training run amok. It's like, oh, the stern maternal figure tells those people off in Brussels, hands off our election, as if people in Brussels are actually plotting to control our election.
They really don't care. They really don't care about our election.
But you're saying that the papers have sucked up exactly what she said. But you've sucked up what the opposition is saying, which is that from Nicola Sturgeon, for example, that she is poisoning the atmosphere of the negotiations, almost willfully sabotaging the UK's prospects. And Tim Farron, this was a cold and calculated choice. Make our neighbours and friends into our enemies just to win votes.
I haven't sucked up. I haven't sucked up what they've said. I
don't know what was
privately
said.
I don't know what was privately said. I think it is absolutely fair enough to say that the 27 EU states,
the 27
EU states do not want to see Britain better off outside of the EU. So they are going to make us pay. That is fair enough. But anybody with a modicum of intelligence going into these kinds of negotiations would be prepared for that. To be so touchy and to fly off the handle at something so small, you know, either she's very sensitive and therefore not a strong and stable leader, or this is a calculated way of making people who read papers like this that are very pro-Brexit think, yes, go Theresa, you're our lady, we're gonna vote for you. And the sad fact is she doesn't need those extra votes because she's probably going to win a giant landslide anyway.
And that's what's striking about her. I think she has that thing that when you're winning, maybe the thing to do is to go all out and try and have a devastating effect.
She doesn't want any opposition at all, so she wants to win everything.
And this, for example, I do think this does. It completely does destroy UKIP, because for Paul Nuttall to go to the right of this, he will actually have to declare war on Brussels, not just metaphorically. For UKIP to sound tougher than Theresa May at the minute, they're going to actually have to declare real war, because what she's doing, she's just occupying that territory. They're occupying the territory which says, I represent Britain, we want a strong and stable Britain, I'm the toughest person here, the most straightforward and robust person, look at the other characters. And it works because it fits the narrative of lots of people.
So once again, UKIP is dictating a Conservative Party policy for an election. Well, it was Cameron that offered a referendum in order to neuter the UKIP vote in the first place.
History books will
look at the story of our time.
It is the power of UKIP, the influence that UKIP have had with one kind of MP for a little bit and now no MPs. It's remarkable. They're an incredible phenomenon. Farage stood to be an MP 7 times and failed, and yet has changed the course of this country.
But the irony is, the result, that's exactly right, the result, though, will be potentially a hugely dominant Tory party, because the Tory party, which was riven over Europe for years, the problem that Cameron couldn't solve, ironically, he has solved by having a referendum, because we have a Tory party which is completely united in support of Brexit.